Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lara, or Lara Likes Mascara. I have not sat down to film a video in over a month, so this feels a little weird, but also really nice, and I am excited about today's video. Earlier this week, I was brainstorming the next sort of couple months of video ideas, and this one sort of came to me. Like, I was just brainstorming on my phone and I immediately just started like writing stuff down, thoughts, ideas, because I feel like I've touched on this subject a little bit before, but I haven't done a deep dive into the world of PR, and so that is what I'm doing today. I'm going to be tackling this from my own opinions. I'm not like given a history of how brand relations and influencers sort of developed. I'm just going to be talking about what the beauty community looks like today and my thoughts on PR from a very anti-consumerist point of view. So if you have not seen my channel before, I like to talk about all things conscious consumerism. I am currently on a makeup no-buy. I have been for a long time. I've been on some form of makeup no-buy or low-buy for years now, basically since I started this channel. And I realized that I had a really unhealthy relationship with makeup and just shopping in general because I was a hoarder and I would overconsume so much. I did not think at all about the environmental aspects of this. I didn't have any kind of qualms about consumerism because, I mean, how would I? Like, I consumed beauty YouTube since I was in grade 11, over a decade now. And there was not any of this kind of discussion around capitalism and conscious consumerism. There's a little bit of it now, for sure. I watch a lot of people who talk about it. Shauna Rapari, Sarah Rose. But it still is definitely an issue. And now that influencing is even more of a thing, there's even more influencers now. TikTok is so huge that rather than sort of recognizing the issues with the beauty industry, we're sort of going backwards. We're going the opposite way. So anyways, that was a long preamble, but today I'm going to give you my take on PR. Just as a quick explainer, there's this article called The Importance of PR Packages that I will link below. And just to give a brief definition, PR packages are packages of carefully selected brand products sent to influencers or celebrities in the hopes that they will use the product and then post about it on social media. So this is not sponsorship. These individuals are not paid to talk about these items, but they are free and they are sent so that these influencers will include them in their content and influence people to buy them. But usually, at least, there is no obligation for the creator to post about it. There's no contract. It's more about giving a genuine review of the product. And this is huge in the beauty community. Like, there are whole PR halls and whatnot. But I think we underestimate just how much of the products that influencers use is gifted. How much of it is products that they did not pay for. I want to give a little bit of background on my own relationship to PR, and also I will be spilling some tea, rest assured. I will be naming specific brands that I have not been happy with and said no to about PR. Yeah, I have no qualms about naming brands. If I have no obligation to them. I mean, I have no obligation to any brands, to be clear, but there's definitely brands that, like, I want to be in their good books so that if one day they wanted to send me PR, like Pacifica, but all other brands, let's shame them. No problem doing that. I have been creating YouTube videos for many years now, and I do have an email that brands can reach out to me through. You know, I'm a fairly small creator, so I don't get that many emails, but I gotta tell you, most of the ones that I do receive are not brands that I am interested in either partnering with or receiving product from. So I get emails from brands about sponsorships, but also about sending me PR, because the smaller content creator you are, the more brands feel like they can take advantage of you and offer you, you know, commission on a product, or say that there is a contract and if they send you PR, then you have to post about it. You are obligated to. That would not happen with larger content creators. But because smaller content creators don't receive as much or any PR, a lot of people will understandably be excited about receiving free product and will agree to post about the product even though they are not being paid. So I have had a number of brands reach out to me, but again, not brands that I'm interested in. And so I either don't respond or I say no thank you. If it's a brand that I am kind of morally against, then I will flat out say no and explain why I am saying no. So one example, I guess I'll say their name. They are called Lily Silk, and they have actually partnered with a number of large influencers, surprisingly. But these guys email me probably every couple months, and every time I say do not contact me again, and yet they do. So, even if I block one email, someone else from their company is going to email me. This is basically a silk company. I am vegan, I am cruelty free, and I feel as if some mention of that comes through in every single video, so clearly they do not watch my videos. And it is frustrating to me that a lot of brands reach out to me that are not cruelty free, because I'm like, first of all, do better, but second of all, do you not even check up on the content that people are making when you are reaching out to them? So sometimes I will respond just out of spite. But then even more than that, my whole ideology is about not consuming. I don't want to bring new products into my collection. I've been on a no buy for a long time, and the products that I do bring into my collection, a lot of them are secondhand. They are products that friends have decluttered to me, which is, a lot more sustainable because I'm not outright purchasing them and they're not being directly created for me. There have been one or two brands that I've been really intrigued to try and have been flattered that they reached out to me, but quite frankly, I didn't feel like I should accept the product because I was on a no buy or it wasn't something that I needed. This one smaller sort of indie company that mostly creates eyeshadows, I'm interested to try their product, but I don't feel as if I need more eyeshadows. So there have been a couple things that I'm like, man, if I wasn't as much of a conscious consumer, if I wasn't as stubborn, I definitely would have said yes. But the only brand that I have accepted PR from is Merit. This was, I think, 2021 or 2022. And I don't regret that because I did actually love the Merit products. And I low-key would accept more product from Merit if they offered again. So anyways, the only brand that I have accepted PR from, one of the products I have even considered repurchasing, but it's just so expensive for so little product that I don't think it's worth it. But if they offered it for free, well, honestly, I would say yes. With them, people have talked about this before, but there was an obligation to post. I would have posted about that stuff anyways because I was very excited by it, and I told this kind of whole story. They offered me the opportunity to try all the products in the line, and I just selected 3 because those were the 3 that I needed. I didn't want to, bring everything into my collection if I didn't need all of these other items. So I was interested in these products, and I thought that that played well into my sort of content, the way that I curated the PR that I wanted. I will link that video here. It's quite old, but I stand by it. So I don't love how they dealt with that, but I'm still happy that I accepted that PR. And at the time, I sort of thought oh, this will be the beginning of brand sending me PR. That's exciting. And here we are, more than 2 years later, never having been sent PR again. So that brings us to the next part of this video, which is why I don't get PR. Why is it that Merit is the only brand that I have received PR from in my entire time on YouTube and TikTok? 2 reasons. The first is, you can probably tell, I'm on a no buy. I do not want to bring more products into my collection. I'm sort of morally opposed to that. If you don't understand why, go watch the rest of my content. I feel like I have talked about my anti-capitalist stance enough times before. And the second reason is that I have not been interested in the brands that have offered to send me PR. So all this to say, I feel like it's important to clarify that it's not that I would flat out never accept PR again. It's that I have quite a high standard and I try to hold myself to that. But if there was a brand that I really wanted to try product from and they offered it to me even if I didn't need it, I think I would have a hard time saying no. I want to be frank, I would. If it was not a cruelty-free brand, I have no problem saying no. So the next chapter of this video is the trap of free things. What I mean by this is we have a very different relationship to products that we decide to spend our money on, our money that we acquired with time and effort, versus things that come into our life without us having to sacrifice anything for it. Say, for example, this Tarte Lights Camera Splashes. Now, when I purchased this, Tarte was having a big sale on, so it definitely wasn't at full price. Let's say it was like $15 or something. Okay, I had to really consider if I wanted to bring this into my collection. Was it worth the money? Versus this brow gel from Merit, this was free. I was not sacrificing anything in order to bring it into my collection. And so I would have a very different relationship between two products that came into my life in different ways. I think it was the Financial Diet here on YouTube that did a really in-depth video about like PR and the sort of toxicity around it and how it tricks us as consumers because we don't understand what influencers have actually paid for and what is free. Chelsea Fagan talks about this a lot, so I will link their channel down below. And even like the way that we as consumers understand PR and like how much of influencers' lives are just being gifted to them, I don't think there is sufficient disclosure around that because yes, when someone gets something in PR, the law says that they have to say it. So like the first time that I showed this on camera, I had to say I got this in PR. But every subsequent time that I use this in a video or I show it on my channel or, you know, it's even in the background of my video because sometimes I have my like makeup tower back there. I'm not announcing that every single time. And if I was, you know, a different YouTuber who had a larger following, I probably would have more PR and I would not be sharing how much of my makeup was PR every single time. Some influencers do, you know, when they're showing their collection tour, they say this was PR, this I bought with my own money, but we don't get like a breakdown, you know? I would love to see a larger influencer showing their whole makeup collection divided by what was free and what they purchased themselves. Grace Beverly from the UK on Instagram, I think she's actually a really good example of someone who tries her best to disclose PR all the time because whenever she's getting like any kind of treatment or showing any kind of product, she will always say in the corner like gifted treatment or like PR product. And I don't think that everyone does that. For example, just recently, she got a new office. It's beautiful. It's this enormous space that is decorated so well. And when she was showing this new office and showing all the aspects, you know, all the furniture, the way that the painting was done and the curtains and even the overall design, like who designed it, every single thing was gifted. Every single thing. So it was not even just like the makeup products she's using and the clothing she's wearing. It is how she outfitted her entire office. I'm not saying this to like slander her, because I think it's the same with every large influencer. They are just not constantly disclosing it. They're not showing their room and being like, oh yeah, all of that, those prints were gifted, those pillows, those were gifted, this lamp, I was gifted. They're not constantly disclosing that. And so we have no idea how much of their lives are actually like real and how much they purchased and how much was just given to them. There aren't adequate laws around that kind of thing. And I just don't think it's realistic to expect that to ever be the case. If, for example, those pillows were gifted, would I say in every video, just so you know, those pillows behind me, they were gifted? Like I don't think we've figured out how to adequately deal with influencer culture. And I do think this is kind of slippery because like sponsorships, you do have to disclose by law. I mean, undisclosed sponsorships are a whole other thing that definitely does happen, but I think it's not super common, or at least it's kind of obvious when it is a sponsorship, and so the person usually gets a lot of backlash. But for example, sometimes I will be watching like a YouTuber or TikTok, their vlog, like they say they're going on a trip. And this is not a sponsor trip, it's not a brand trip. But when they get to the hotel room, there's like this whole little package that's like, Dear Stephanie, for example. And it says, you know, welcome, we're so glad to have you. And then there's like flowers and a bottle of champagne or something. But this is not a brand trip. And they don't say that they are working with this hotel. They don't say it's gifted or anything like that. But for the hotel to have written them a specific note and gifted them a free bottle of champagne, like obviously there is at least some kind of like in-kind value given there. Likely they're staying in that hotel for free, even if it is not sponsored. And they're not disclosing this. And I'm sure that this happens even when they don't show this cute little like note and setup that people get gifted treatments or hotel stays all the time and they don't disclose it because they don't have to. Or, you know, maybe what happens is they go get their nails done and they are recognized, for example, at the nail shop, and then this whole treatment is gifted. You know, you could say the same thing for if someone gets like Botox or has like a facial or any kind of treatment like that. The person shows what their nails look like before and after, but they don't say it's gifted because they were theoretically going to be a paying customer, but then they came to an arrangement after the fact or whatever it is. You know, like I do think it is a slippery slope, and I don't know how we like redo or fix this whole industry, because as it is, like, we all have this outsized idea of the lifestyle that influencers are living, and we probably have, you know, notions of how much money they are making. And yes, they are making a lot of money, but a lot of their stuff is free. A lot of like their lifestyle is free. It's very, very tricky. This is bigger than just PR. You know, I'm going into like treatments and hotel stays and travel and, you know, airlines and everything. We just don't know the truth a lot of the time, and I don't know how you regulate that. So that is not so much like the ethical side of things, but just like the way that we as consumers are kept in the dark. I think all of that plays into why I am so critical or cynical about PR, because I think that a lot of the time people are being very dishonest and not even intentionally. And then the other side of things, which I kind of touched on, but I think it's even more obvious, is the environmental aspect of all of this. Like, think about how much stuff we are seeing come into the lives of influencers. Again, I follow like anti-consumerist and regular influencers, I would say, and the regular influencers, they're not disclosing all the PR that they're getting because, you know, it's a lot and it takes a lot of time to show it all. But when they do, it's massive. People talk about how they get multiple boxes of stuff to their door every week or even every day, and sometimes it's stuff that they expect and sometimes it's just out of the blue. They weren't even expecting it, but they are delighted to receive it. And that is not normal, and we cannot see it as normal. This is whether or not like this is free or paid stuff. Like, if you are someone who is ordering so much stuff that you are getting multiple boxes shipped to your home every week, this is not normal. This is not sustainable. Like, how do you even have enough space in your home for all that, especially if you live in an apartment? Like, that must mean that you are either constantly decluttering stuff, which if you are constantly decluttering stuff, there's no way that you're able to do that in a more like sustainable, ethical manner where you find new homes for things. You're probably just like throwing stuff out, or at the bare minimum, like donating large bags to Value Village, which is not... I mean, yes, that's better than the garbage, but that is not the best thing to do. Or this means that like a lot of what you're getting is just junk. Like the people who get like these massive like Nespresso pods, you know? Yes, those are recyclable, but like that is just so much packaging and so much garbage. It's not stuff you're keeping. Like, I don't know, whenever I see that people only consume coffee as like Nespresso pods or Keurig pods, I'm like, oh man. Like, recycling is not the end goal. That is not going to save the planet. It is just one tool that we have that doesn't even work that well. Or the other alternative is you don't declutter anything and your home just becomes more and more cluttered and you become like a hoarder, which was what happened to me. And it's so hard to get out of this trap of consumerism. I personally am someone who I try to only consume secondhand, so clothing, makeup, decluttered to me, home stuff. And even with that, I feel like I do bring a lot of new stuff into my life and it gets overwhelming at times and I don't have space for it all and I don't know what to do. And when I bring new things in, I'm like, oh, okay, now I have to declutter other things. Like, even as someone who only brings secondhand stuff in, it's still so much stuff. Let me show you what I brought into my life this week, okay? Okay, I went to a clothing swap this week. Love clothing swaps, highly recommend. Sometimes I don't do well, and those are honestly the better times, but I found so much this time. My mom also decluttered a couple of things to me. My friend decluttered a whole bunch of makeup to me, brand new stuff. I haven't yet figured out what I'm keeping and what I'm not, but how can I say no to that? So much. I get so overwhelmed, and then I have to declutter stuff or find new space for it. Anyways, this is my own issue at this point, but I just can't fathom like how someone can get multiple boxes of stuff into their apartment every week and not think that that's a problem, and not have something in their brain be like, this is a lot of stuff. Not just like neutrally sit with that fact, you know? So, would I accept PR if offered? I can't say definitively yes or no. I think I have like a higher threshold, is that the right word, for saying no than a lot of influencers, because I am cruelty free. I try to buy exclusively vegan products and, you know, brands that have not had any kind of like drama or controversy. Like Too Faced, I would not accept product from. I'm not saying these brands have tried to send me product. I'm just like theoretically thinking I would like to be prepared if a brand offered me. You know what I mean? Especially because my TikTok presence has been growing recently. I have been putting more effort into TikTok. 2 of my videos blew up over there. One has 2.4 million and the other one has over 1 million. So I mean, I only have like 1,000 followers, but it is growing, and each of my TikTok videos get vastly more views than my YouTube videos do. YouTube is obviously more important because I feel like I have a relationship somewhat with this community here. We talk back and forth. These videos are like 30 minutes versus 30 seconds, so it is very different. I think that my YouTube audience is more valuable, but eyeballs, number of eyeballs is also very important. So I think I would accept PR in the future, but I would hope that I will be very discerning about what I would accept. And I need to recognize that if I was in this situation even 5 years ago, it would be very different. I know for a fact that I would be accepting every free product that was sent to me, because that was back in the day when I was an overconsumer, when I was a hoarder, and I wanted as big a makeup collection as possible. And now I have the complete opposite goal. I honestly want a smaller and smaller and smaller makeup collection. So I am grateful that I have a different mentality than I did then. And I'm grateful that there were no brands who wanted to send me product in 2019, because this makeup collection would be far larger than it is. Far larger. Anyways, we have definitely gotten into the rant territory. I covered a lot here. These are all my opinions, so I would love to hear your opinions. If you do make content, I would first of all love to hear brands that you would love to hate on. I feel like that's kind of fun. I've talked to Shauna about some brands like that before. And what your thoughts are on PR. Should it even exist? How do we regulate this industry? I don't have answers at the moment. All I can say is, again, I am grateful that I have come to these conclusions myself, and that though I am on YouTube and TikTok, I feel like I understand consumerism. So yeah, all I can say is that I am glad that I didn't become an influencer before I was radicalized. I don't know if that's the appropriate word, but you know what I mean, like anti-consumerist, anti-capitalist, very critical of the whole industry, and able to sort of look at it from a different perspective, and not one where I have a vested interest in these brands and my worth, my value, and my career, my financial incentive is tied to them. I've always looked at this as a hobby and not as a career. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I love makeup. I love the beauty community, but I would not want this as my career. And honestly, most of that is just because I love film more than I love makeup. So my end goal is always to be in the film world. Way off topic. But yes, I'm glad that I didn't become an influencer before I shaped my worldview, because I would be a very different person. I think I would have had my blinders on, and I would have become one of those people who was not able to look at boxes and boxes of new stuff coming into my life every week as a negative thing, or at the very least as something to interrogate at a deeper level. So that is all for my take, my anti-consumerist take on PR. Thank you so much for watching. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. I haven't done a video like this in a while where I dive deep into a makeup topic. Kelly Gooch has been doing some makeup musing videos, which have been very interesting, and I think these types of videos for me are kind of like that. If you have something else that you want me to tackle, a particular subject or something controversial in the beauty community, let me know. Would love to do it. And now let's talk about a book that I have been reading lately. Oh my goodness, this is already too long a video, but I simply must talk about this book because it was so good. So I have been in this book club for, oh my god, like 4 years now. And you know, we put forward the books that we want to read and then everyone votes. And so a lot of the time the books that we're reading are not the books that I voted for or books that I want to read, but it is kind of nice to like stretch yourself and read stuff that you would not have personally selected otherwise. So this book was called True Biz. I did not have it on my radar at all, but it sounded really interesting. And this is one of the best books that we have ever read in book club. As soon as I started, I was like, oh my god. One of those times where you're like, this is so good, I'm going to love it. Basically, this is a book about the deaf community in Ohio, in the US, and it focuses on a couple of different individuals. So there is February, who is the headmistress of a deaf school. She is hearing herself, but she's a coda. She's a child of deaf parents, so her native language is ASL. The other focuses are a child, I think she's like 15 to 17, named Charlie, who is also deaf. She has been implanted. Okay, it stopped filming, but I love this book. I just had book club yesterday and I hosted, so I was the one who prepared the questions, and we had such a good discussion. It was so nourishing. And I think when we think about social justice activism, one of the tenets that sort of gets left behind or forgotten about is disability and ableism and how it impacts the world. Accessibility is not as much of a concern as it should be. And there are so many well-known books that are about people who have been marginalized because of the color of their skin or their religion or their sexual orientation, but we don't as much think about disability. I hope that we see more books like this. It was so interesting. It was done in such a accessible way where you really learned about the history of the deaf community and the oppression of deaf people. This was a 5-star read. If you do not read anything else that I recommend, please read this one. It was excellent. I loved it. As you can tell, this was a tough filming day. At first the camera stopped working and then the mic stopped working, so I didn't do an outro, but bye! Cochlear implant, which is this technology that allows deaf people to hear, but it is very faulty. It is not, these people are not able to hear in the way that hearing people are, and a lot of the time it actually creates more problems or just doesn't work at all. And her parents have spent her entire life sort of denying who she is and the fact that she is deaf. They have never made an effort to learn ASL. They do not want her to be part of the deaf community. And then there's also Austin, who is a kind of legacy deaf student at this school. He is a 5th generation deaf student, so his community is very, very tight-knit, and he has grown up with ASL coded into his bones, I think is how he puts it. This book, it was so emotionally impactful for me. I thought it was very well written. It's very accessible, but it also is kind of educational. You learn a lot about the deaf community and deaf history throughout the book, and you learn how deaf people have been oppressed and marginalized for centuries, and how people are trying to make ASL extinct, basically. And there is a lot of really interesting ethical questions around the future of the deaf community and what the world looks like now, what it has looked like in the past, and how the future of the deaf community is essentially in the hands of the hearing world, in the hands of hearing parents, like Charlie's parents, who denied her access to this part of her, to this world. It was devastating. I cried so much while reading it, but it was so beautiful.